Hello and welcome to another episode of Social Impact Live. I'm your host, Darrell Coleman. Today I want to talk to you real quick about finding your motivation as a social entrepreneur and specifically the challenge, the problem with chasing accolades. I was on Twitter recently and I saw a story. It was a clip of the show The View, where they were interviewing Van Jones. Van Jones, for those who don't know, is a TV personality, social entrepreneur, and innovator who focuses on creating innovations that improve outcomes for those at the bottom of our socioeconomic hierarchy. So in many cases, that's Black people, brown people in America. He's done a lot of work advocating for green jobs, but also for criminal justice reform and other reforms that will actually improve the quality of life of people of color in the United States of America. In this particular clip, he was being interviewed, and the person who was interviewing him asked him a question about his standing in the Black community in America. And ultimately, to summarize what she said, "Hey, Van, there are a lot of people who in the Black community don't support you anymore. They're saying that, you shouldn't be someone who should ultimately be followed." Citing some of his effort and his work, working alongside Republicans in the United States to either pass certain laws or just in the photos and things like that have come out in the media. And Van Jones responded to this, citing many of the accomplishments that him and his organization have had. And among those, the ones that really stood out to me were the tens of thousands of people that him and his organization have helped get released from jail and prisons early, especially in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, where people who are incarcerated have been dying at really high rates. What really struck me about this conversation, though, was that Van Jones came to the table with tons of real world examples of the impact that his work had created. His major point during this conversation was that he has been at the table with Democrats and Republicans alike, trying to advance the cause of creating change for the people at the bottom, the people who don't have any other defenses, don't have resources to support themselves, don't have a lot of people fighting for their cause. He and his organization have been at the table, whether it's been at the table with Democrats or at the table with Republicans, fighting to make it so that those people have a fighting chance. And through that work has produced a number of really substantial outcomes for, like I said, tens of thousands of people whose lives have been changed because of that. But in the responses, in the comments below, right, there were all sorts of comments about people saying, "Yeah, I don't really rock with Van Jones anymore. I don't believe in his approach. I don't believe in his mission. I don't believe in him. I don't listen to anything that he says. If he's in the room, you really shouldn't trust him," etc. And it really got me thinking about the challenge of being a social entrepreneur. The challenge of finding motivation in that space when the work that you're doing and the work that we do in life in general can never fully be something that stands on its own as indicative of whether you are successful in your efforts or not. What I mean by that is, as a social entrepreneur, we run into this challenge, the challenge of continuing to motivate ourselves, continuing to figure out what is it that we are fighting for, who is it that we are fighting for, when often the effort and the intention that we put into the work that we do will not be fully received either by the people themselves who are benefiting from it or from the spectators who are watching from the sidelines. We see this, I think, across the world, across our society, where people try to put something out into the world, whether those are social entrepreneurs, they are artists, in our industry, those are politicians, they are, other public figures, try to create something, put something out. And over time, we see how they get worn down by the negative responses they get to the work that they do, right? And it got me thinking about this concept, basically, of motivating ourselves without chasing accolades. Accolades come in so many forms. They come in the form of awards that we might receive. They come in the form of degrees or other letters next to our name that might indicate to the world that we are capable and competent in what we do, but they also come in the form of small amounts of praise that we receive from others. That might be praise from people on Twitter. It might be praise from our own employees, our own teammates. It might be praise from our own family members. But ultimately, if we seek accolades as the motivation for why we do what we do, I think that we end up in a situation where what we are chasing is always emptier than what it could be otherwise. And I think the Van Jones example is a really good example of that. Van Jones's actions have gone on, I believe, to help tens of thousands, millions of people in America, whether that's now or in the future. He was instrumental in some ways of passing the First Step Act, which was signed into law by President Trump. He played a role in shifting the perspectives of people who wouldn't normally come to the side of criminal justice reform in order to get these things passed. And yet, right, if he's only basing his feelings about what he's doing, his motivation, on the accolades he receives from the people who are watching, or even some of the people who are affected, he's going to come up short. And so as I was thinking about that, I was actually recently having a conversation with my parents about this as well. And I basically came to this conclusion, which I want to share with you today. As a social entrepreneur, as an innovator who is trying to create something in the world, who's trying to do good in the world, it's imperative that you figure out what is it that motivates you outside the motivation of awards and applause of other people. What is it that motivates you that isn't tied to direct feedback from the world? What is it that gets you out of bed and says and allows you to say to yourself, this is worth doing, whether anyone knows about it or not? This is worth me investing my time, energy, and effort into, whether anyone ever pats me on the back for it, rewards me for it, whether I even see the fruits of my labor, right? That is the question that you as a social entrepreneur need to answer, and that I, as a social entrepreneur, need to answer as well. When I was having this conversation with my parents, I asked them this question, and I thought I would just share a little bit about what we talked about here. Ultimately, what they said was it comes down to knowing that they are living as the people that they are meant to be. That it comes down to knowing that they have put everything into their kids, into their community, they could possibly put into those people, and that in the end, they are right with their creator as far as knowing that what they do in and of itself, the action in and of itself, is good. And as I thought about that, as I reflected on that, I thought, that's true. That's true for me too. We all get caught up, and I am definitely a part of this, of seeking the praise of other people. But as I've reflected on this over the last few days here, I think that it was a message that was worth bringing to you, and one that I want to make sure I keep top of mind as well, which is that ultimately the reason that I do the work that I do is not so that I can be praised by human beings. It is not so that I can receive awards or accolades or money or any of those pieces. It is ultimately because there is work that in and of itself is good. It is good work. It bears good fruit. And even if we don't know who planted that seed, it is still worth planting, right? Even if we never receive praise for the fact that we were there, that we sowed the seed ourselves, that we watered the ground that it came from, it is still worth doing because in and of itself, it is good. So that's just a message I wanted to bring to you today. Let me know if that resonates with you. I would love to hear whether you've struggled to remain motivated, whether you've ever chased accolades or you've ever chased the adoration of other people, or whether that's a common issue or challenge for you. Let me know in the comments below, and I will be back tomorrow with another episode of Social Impact Live. Tomorrow is Gratitude Sunday, so I will be saying thanks to some folks who I really appreciate on this journey to make the world around me a better place. I hope you have a great